So, very good evening to all of you. Yeah. Okay. Very good evening to all the research scholars, my professional colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Before I will start my lecture, let me thank Dr. Alok Pandey, who is a coordinator, national coordinator of Shodh, Mr. Varun, who is a convener of Shodh Gujarat Prant, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to deliver today's talk on preventing plagiarism and publishing scholarly articles in high impact factor journals. It is important that research work done with great efforts should be published in a quality and index journal. At the same time, it is also important to guide research scholars about the plagiarism and various ways to avoid the plagiarism. This lecture will focus on various steps of publishing an article in high impact factor journals, criteria for evaluation of articles, how we can share and promote our research, how to measure the impact of scientific publication, and it is also very much important to know about what is plagiarism, key highlights of UGC regulations 2018 on plagiarism, and some important circular UGC has recently uh, notified related to plagiarism. Now, talking about the history of scientific publication, as you can see from this slide, the first journals was published in 1665, and there were two journal. One is written, one was written in French language, and another was the English language journal. And since then, there are huge number of increase as far as publication of journals are concerned. And as per the Ulrich International Periodical Directory, which is world's only authentic source which indexed journals which are being published throughout the world, and it's basically a directory which gives information about the journals, country of publications, ISSN, and other bibliographical details of the journal. As per this Ulrich Web International Directory, there are more than 246,000 journals are indexed in 2019. And when we talk about the STM market, Science and Technology Journals market, in today's era, there was a study which was published by Otsel in 2017, and according to this study, the total estimated market of all the STM journals was estimated of 25.7 billion. Now again, now let's discuss about one recent study which was published in India Today on January 2020. It's reported that with over 1.35 lakh scientific papers published, India has become the world's third largest publisher of science and engineering article, according to US government agency data. And you can see from this slide is China is leading from the front with a global share of 20.67%, and China has published 5,28 articles. United States at the second position, which is having 16.54% of global share, and it has published 4,22,000 articles in 2018, and India at the third position with a total number of articles 1,35,788. So this data was basically compiled by the US National Science Foundation, and based on this data, there's one study published by Press Trust of India in India Today magazine. These are some of the key highlights of this study. You can see from this slide is the total number of scientific papers published worldwide increased from 70 lakh 55,850 in 2008 to 25 lakh 55,000 in 2018. So between 2008 and 2018, science and engineering articles from India grew at an average annual rate of nearly 11%. In 2018, India encountered for 5.31% of the global share of science and engineering articles as compared to 2% in 2018. So the key highlights of this study is that Indian research quality lacks quantity. So for Indian, quantitative increase is a good news, but what matters more is impact. So Indian impact, which is generally measures through calculation of citation, was only about 1%, which is very less as compared to USA and other European Union countries. And in this study, it was also highlighted that the high impact factor journals accept less than 10% of articles submitted to, to these journals. So this complete study is available in the link which I have shared with you. So you can, uh, you can see the complete study which is available in this website also. Now, the next thing is how we can publish an article in a high impact factor journals. So now, as I have mentioned in this slide, there are various steps which you have to follow to publish an article in a high impact factor journals. And these steps are, first one is find a journal, second is prepare your manuscript, publish and revise, track your submission, proofreading, and then sharing and promoting. So now I will discuss each step one by one so that you have an idea about how we can publish articles in a high impact factor journals. Okay. So now before going to the various steps of publishing your article in a high impact factor journals, first it is very much necessary to understand what is basically impact factor. Now, the impact factor, which was devised by Eugene Garfield, who was the founder of Institute of Scientific Information, Philadelphia, and since 1975, all the journals which are being indexed by Thomson Reuters listed in the journal citation report, now it is taken over by the Clarivate. So now it is known as Clarivate JCR, Journal Citation Report. Now here in this slide, I have given you one example how we can calculate impact factor of any journal. That's for example, if you wanted to calculate an impact factor of any journal of 2017, then the simple calculation of calculating the impact factor is total number of citations received in 2017 to the item published in 2015 plus 2016. Here we are calculating the impact factor of 2017. So in this case, what we have to take, we have to calculate the citations in 2017 to the articles published in 2015 plus 2016 divided by total number of citable articles published in 2015 and 2016. For example, if the journal has received 109 citation in 2005 and 105 citation in 2016, and when you combine these two numbers, it will come to 214, and then divided by the total number of articles published in 2015 and 16. So whatever number will be is basically impact factor of this particular journal. Now, the first and most important thing is once your manuscript is ready for the publication, the first and most important step is make a good first impression with your title and abstract. The title and abstract are very much important component of your manuscript as they are the first element a journal editor sees. So the title should summarize the main theme of your article and reflect your contribution to the theory, and the abstract should be crafted very carefully, and it comprises the aim and scope of the study, the key problem to be addressed, the methodology which you have used while writing this research paper, the data set, the key findings. If there is any limitation, you have to mention the limitation and implication for theory and practice. And I always give example of how we can prepare a good manuscript of our manuscript. So while writing abstract of your paper, the first thing which you have to mention is what is the purpose of your study. So if you are writing in a clear-cut way that these are the purpose of your research, so first start with the purpose of your study. Then if there is any originality or the USP of your paper, then also mention the key highlights of your study. And another very important step is your methodology should be very clearly written. So write clearly about the research methodology which you have adopted while conducting the study, the key findings you have to highlight, and if there are any research limitations or implications, you have to write in your abstract. Is there any practical implication of your paper? Always mention the practical implications. And if there is any social implication, you always write social implication and the original value of your paper. So if you are writing your abstract, if you are writing abstract of your manuscript in a such way, that will always give a very good impression when you submit your paper for the publication. Now, the next important step is once your title you have finalized, you have written a very good abstract. Now, the next thing is find the right journal. Now, the finding the right journal for your article can be key to reaching your target audience. Take into consideration the type of article you would like to publish. You wanted to publish full-length paper or review paper or research output, and also check the references in your article to give an indication of possible journals of your interest. And very important is read the journal aim and scope on journal homepage. And if you need to publish your article in open access, remember that most journals explain their open access option on their journal homepage. So the very much important step for submitting your manuscript in a good journal is find the right journal. Now, there are many sophisticated tools which is designed and developed by many publishers. So now available for the research scholar, and all these platforms are free of cost. For example, Elsevier Journal Finder. Now this tool is available at the Elsevier website, and the main advantage of using this tool is it helps you to find journal that could be best suited for publishing your scientific article. You can also consult the journal aim and scope for further guidance. Ultimately, the editor will decide how well your article matches the journal. So this journal finder of Elsevier locates Elsevier journals that most closely match your abstract, and Elsevier journal will be recommended if it has published articles that are highly similar to your article. And how you can check the right journal for your manuscript using this journal finder is, what you have to do is you simply copy the title of your paper and abstract in this box, write the significant keyword of your research paper and select the area of study. So once you will done with this step, after this the journal finder will suggest you some of the best journal suited for your publication, and here you can see it will tell you the impact factor of that particular journal, chances of acceptance, like here it is showing 18%, how much time it will take to publish your paper. Likewise, you can see what are the journals which will best fit for your manuscript. Now, another publisher has developed the similar tool which help researcher in terms of identifying the right journal is a Wiley Journal Finder. And the step for selecting or shortlisting the journal is almost same. You just go to the Wiley Journal Finder, copy your title, paste it in the title box, paste your abstract, and when you press the enter, it will again give you a list of appropriate journals, list of shortlisted journals which are best suited for your publication. And here you can see in the grade color, it will show the chances of acceptance of your paper, the time it will take, and the impact factor of that particular journal. Similarly, Springer is also having the same similar type of tool which help research scholar if they are interested in publishing their manuscript with the Springer publishers. Now, if you are not interested or if you are not looking for any specific publisher uh, in which you wanted to publish your manuscript, so there is a one aggregator, it's called Idange. These publishers help you in terms of finding the appropriate journal for your manuscript. And the beauty of this Advantage platform is it index more than 28,000 journals and 12 lakh art abstract so that it will give you the best possible result for your suitable journals. And it finds a good match between your manuscript and a peer-reviewed academic journal, which will help research scholar in terms of selecting the journals. So here the same step you can repeat. You just copy the abstract, upload, paste it in this box, and then it will give you the list of possible journals in where you can publish your articles. Another important tool for the researcher for journal selector is EndNote Match, and it's a Thomson Reuters product. So it's also available free of cost for the researcher scholar. So similarly, it will tell you the shortlisted journals. Now, the next step is once you shortlisted the target journal for the publication of your manuscript, the next step is you have to read the aim and scope of the journal twice and thrice, so that you can see whether your objective is matching with the journal objective or not. And the manuscript can receive a desk rejection. Desk rejection means without sending your research paper for peer review, editor at his own end, he or she reject your paper. And what are the criteria on which generally editor they do the desk rejections? These are: if your research objective is not in line with the aim and scope of the target journal, if your manuscript is not structured and formatted according to the target journal layout. For example, if you wanted to publish your paper in an IEEE journal, then IEEE has uploaded the template for publishing manuscript in their journals. So if, like for example, here you can see this is the template for publishing your manuscript in IEEE journals. So you have to write the title in a different font, followed by the author name. Then it should be a 2-column page. First you write abstract in the starting, then how you can write the introduction. Likewise, it has given the complete layout of publishing any paper in IEEE. So if you are not following the journal layout for publishing your paper, in this case also, the editor can do the desk rejection. And there is a one study which is conducted by the Elsevier, and they shared this data. And according to this study, there are between 30 to 50% of articles submitted to Elsevier journals are rejected before they even reach to the peer review. And one of the top reasons for is a poor language. Yes, this is very much true that because of the poor language, grammatical mistake, most of the manuscript from developing countries, they can't find any place in high impact factor journals. Now, to assist the research scholar in terms of improving the quality of your language and in terms of, in terms of minimizing the grammatical error of your manuscript, these are some of the tools which are recommended by different research scholar and academician throughout the world. And these tools are available, and you can see from this slide also. These, like Hemingway editor, Grammarly, I think most of you are familiar with the Grammarly after the deadline. So these are the tools which helps research scholars in terms of improving, you know, uh, the language of your paper. And one more thing is, before submitting your manuscript into the portal of your any journal publisher, we generally ignore the importance of writing a cover letter. So never underestimate the importance of a cover letter addressed to the editor or editor-in-chief on target journal. And this cover letter, authors can highlight and highlight the key findings of their study and convince them that their research work is worth reviewing. According to the content of cover letter is also worth spending time on it. So some inexperienced scholar paste the article abstract into their cover letter thinking it will be sufficient to make the case of publication, and it is a practice which is to be best avoided. So a good cover letter first outlines the main theme of the paper, second urge the novelty of paper, and third justify the relevance of the manuscript to the target journal. It would suggest limiting the cover letter to half an page. More importantly, peers and colleagues who read the article and provided feedback before the manuscript submission should be acknowledged in the cover letter. So I can give you my personal experience regarding this cover letter. Recently, I have submitted my research paper in one of the journal indexed by Scopus. And once I have submitted the research paper without the cover note, I think I received a reply within 2 days from the editor. And in his reply, he said that your journal is not fit as per our aim and scope of the journals. So we are rejecting your paper. Then after this, I've written a cover note along with my original manuscript to the reviewer, and that basically forced editor to again have a relook of my paper. And after this, you can see from the screenshot of this email that after my cover note, the publisher, the editor has accepted my paper and he sent this paper for a peer review process. Now, let me show you just a second. Now, this is the screenshot here. You can see that I am pleased to provisionally accept your article NFC for the publication in information technology in the forthcoming issue of our journal. So here what I'm trying to say is, if you're writing, if you are submitting a good cover letter, it will always give advantage of publishing or chances of acceptance of your paper in the quality journals. Now the next thing is research methodology. So whenever you are writing research methodology, so in this section it should be detailed enough that readers can replicate your research and access whether the method justify the conclusion. Ultimately, you should explain how you study the problem, identify the procedures you followed, and structure this information as logical as possible. And if you have done any statistical tool, always mention these tests and the software which you have used so that your quantitative results can be judged. And when you are writing the result part of your research paper, present your findings objectively, explaining them largely in the text. It's where you show how your result contribute to the body of scientific knowledge. So it should be very clear and logical, and you should emphasize any significant finding clearly in your research paper. In discussion and conclusion, you should link this section back to the introduction, referring to your question or hypothesis, and cover how results relate to your expectation and cited sources. Your conclusion must be supported and not exceeded beyond your result. So avoid undue speculation and bold judgment about your impact. Now, adding the research data. Now, research data forms the backbone of your research article and provide the foundation of which scientific and technical knowledge is built. So, as a researcher, you are increasingly encouraged, or even sometimes it's mandatory for the research scholar to make your research data available, accessible, discoverable, and usable. And for this, you can choose to store your data in a repository like Mendeley Data Repository. And there are many open data repositories available where you can submit your raw data. And if you are submitting your data article, which will be indexed and linked with your original article, be sure to cite your research data in your article. This ensures that receiving credit for your work while making your research data accessible, giving your readers deeper insight and you know authenticity of your paper. Now, the very important aspect of your research paper is how to reference and avoid plagiarism. So now talking about the plagiarism, this is the simplest meaning of the plagiarism, and you must be aware that the word plagiarism comes from the Latin word plagiarius, which means a kidnapper. So according to Merriam-Webster online dictionary, plagiarism means the practice of taking someone else's work or idea and passing them as one's own without crediting the actual source. And there is a one very beautiful tutorial on plagiarism, which is published by State George St. John's State University, USA, and which is available on their website. This tutorials helps you in terms of knowing about the plagiarism, what are the different types of plagiarism, and what are the various ways through which we can avoid the plagiarism. So I always recommend a research scholar to go to this website and read the tutorial on plagiarism. Now talking about the UGC policy or regulation, which was notified on 23rd July 2018, and it is known as Promotion of Academic Integrity and Prevention of Plagiarism in Higher Education. Now after these guidelines, most of the university now they have adopted in toto, and now they are following these guidelines as far as submission of thesis is concerned, as far as publication of research paper are concerned. So these are the key objectives behind this UGC 2000 regulation, and these are to create awareness about the research ethics, plagiarism, to establish institutional mechanism through which education and training to facilitate responsible conduct of research as far as submission of thesis is concerned, and to develop a system to detect the plagiarism of this research work which is being submitted to different university. Now in this regulation, UGC has made it very much clear that before submitting your final version of your thesis into your department, there are certain exclusions which you can apply, and these exclusions are: you can exclude all the quoted work which you have reproduced with all necessary permission and attribution. All references, bibliography, table of content, preface, and acknowledgement you can exclude before submitting the final version of your thesis. And all generic terms, laws, standard symbols, and standard equations you can exclude before submitting your thesis in your department. Now, recently UGC has also issued a notification. This is related to the self-plagiarism, and it says that self-plagiarism is considered as republishing the same paper already published elsewhere without due and full citation. So reproduction in part or whole of one's own previously published work without adequate citation and proper acknowledgement, and claiming the most recent work as new and original for any academic advantage, amounts to be self-plagiarism. So if you are taking something from your already published work, in this case you have to give citation of your previously published research paper. So in this way you can avoid the self-plagiarism. So this circular is also available in the public domain, and here UGC has clearly explained about the self-plagiarism and what are the precautions research scholars they can take if they are taking something from their from their previously published research work. Now, there are certain ways through which you can avoid the plagiarism. First one is provide proper references wherever is required. So whatever text you are, whatever findings, your definitions you are taking from already published work, in that case, you have to give a proper citation. You also have to give a proper citations even for the photographs, diagrams, picture, graphs, and maps you are taking. You know how to paraphrase. And if you are doing paraphrasing and you are giving citation of the original work, in this case you can avoid the plagiarism. And be careful while paraphrasing. Make sure you are only rearranging and replacing few words. Quotations should be used carefully. They must be exact word by word as they appear in the original document, and provide citations. The format of citations and references varies from publishers to publishers, so you should be very careful for referring the citations through the author guidelines of any particular journal. Keep acknowledgement brief, naming those who help you for your research contributors, and it can be suppliers or funder. Now, next is how article reviewed and what are the criteria for evaluation of article. So after submission of your manuscript to the editor, each manuscript is checked for plagiarism and assessed carefully to determine if it fits the aim and scope of that particular journal or not. If journal representatives are enthusiastic about the work, the journal editor will appoint reviewer for your paper. And what does the peer reviewer do? Reviewers can determine the validity, significance, and originality of the work and can suggest improvement to the manuscript on your research. So these are different type of peer reviews: single blind, where the name of the review are hidden from the author; double blind, both reviewer and authors are anonymous to each other; triple blind, reviewers are anonymous and author's identity is unknown to both reviewer and the editor. Now let me show you, as I am also editor of one of the journal, one of the reputed journal, and I can show you, see, once we receive any article for a peer review, how we judge any article on the criteria which is basically assigned by the editor to each and every reviewer. So you can see from this slide is, first thing we check in submitted paper, the originality. Does the paper contains any new significant or information adequate to justify publications? So first thing is originality. Second, the review of literature. How much articles you have covered while writing your literature review, and how you are correlating the existing literature with your results and finding. The next one is methodology. So this section is very much important, and as I mentioned earlier, while writing the abstract, you should always write clearly and explain in detail the methodology. And then results, are the results, they are presented in a very relevant way, and whether you are correlating your result with the existing literature. And then the language of your paper, and then originality of your paper. Does the paper has any significance practically or socially? And what is the USP of this paper? So based on these 5 or 6 criteria, the reviewer, they basically generally either they accept the paper or reject the paper. So you should be very careful while writing your research paper. If you are writing your research paper in a such a way that will help reviewer to evaluate your paper, that will always give you advantage of publishing your research paper in a quality journals. Now address, once you will receive the comments from the reviewer. Now it's very important to read very carefully the recommendation provided by the reviewer or editor-in-chief. The revision process required 2 major documents. The first is the revised manuscript highlighting all the modifications. So once you received your manuscript along with the comment from the reviewer, so first thing is you have to revise your manuscript and you have to highlight that these are the points which were raised by the reviewer, and these are the modification or changes I have done accordingly. The second is listening the author's responses and illustrating how they have addressed the comment or the reply of the reviewer. Let me show you the example of one of my recent paper. So here in this page, you can see there are 7 to 8 points or objections reviewer had made. Even I have to justify whatever numbers I am writing. So here the reviewer is asking to me, is there any already literature is published where it is supporting your statement that NFC device are already capable of 848 kilobytes per second. So what you have to do is you have to read each and every comment, and accordingly you have to revise your manuscript. And if you are doing so, that will help reviewers to understand that whatever changes we have suggested, you have incorporated in your uh, revised manuscript. The next important thing is the copyright. When you publish your article, you enter into a legal agreement. This means that both publisher and you as an author agree to certain right and responsibility and promise to act in a legally sound manner. So copyright basically aims to protect the specific way the article has been written to describe the research and its result, and the publishers are committed to the reproduction protection and defense of your author's work. So this copyright agreement varies from publisher to publisher, so you should be very careful while signing the copyright agreement of any publisher. Now, these are some of the research ethics which you have to keep in mind while writing your research papers. Now, understanding the boundaries of scientific research and publishing in a key step is making sure your work gets off the best start. Scientific misconduct or breach of publishing ethics. Is there any conflicts of authorship? Is there any, simultaneously submission you are doing? So if you are submitting your same paper at the same time in two or three different publishers, that is basically, it should be best avoided. And then, is there any research fraud? Are you involved? Are you involving yourself in, manipulating the data, or data fabrication or data falsification? So these are some of the important research ethics which we should always keep in mind while writing our research paper. Now, once your paper is published with any publishers, the next and very important step is promote and share your research work. So more than 1 million scientific articles published each year, and that number is rising. So it's very increasingly important for you to find ways to make your article available in an open access platform. And promoting your research does not begin after your manuscript is finished and has been published online. So the basic objective behind promoting your research work is you are uploading or you are making availability of your research in a public domain, you know, so that it has a maximum accessibility from all over the world. But you must be very careful before uploading your research paper in any professional network or academic network website, that you have to read the copyright policy of each and every publisher. And for this, there is a very important website which is called Sherpa and Romeo. Is a service run by Sherpa, also show the copyright and open self-archiving policy of academic journals. The database basically uses a coding scheme to classify publishers according to their self-archiving policy. This shows how this shows authors whether the journals allows author to upload their research paper in their institutional directory or any public platform or not. For example, for example, if you have published your research paper in a nature journal, so there are certain restrictions that you can't upload the publisher's version of PDF in your own access repository. So what Nature is allowing you? Nature is allowing you to upload your research paper in institutional repository or any open access platform, but only the preprint version of your research paper. So if you wanted to promote your research paper after publishing with any publishers, so better to go and consult this website, and you can search each and every journal's copyright policy through this platform. So like there are many platforms are available, like ResearchGate is one of the best professional network for scientists and researchers, and there are over 17 million members from all over the world use it to share, discover, discuss their research. So you can use this platform for promoting and sharing your research paper. And there are many other professional platforms are also available which helps you in terms of promoting your research paper. So once you have published the research paper and you have promoted your research paper, the next step is how you measure the impact, research impact of your published paper. So for measuring the research impact, there are various metrics are available, like for example, journal metrics, author metrics, article metrics, and alt metric. So journal metrics basically help you in terms of identifying the quality of any particular journal. And you can apply certain metrics like impact factor, which help track citation pattern within journal and determine which journals are highly cited. There are many author metrics are available through which you can judge the quality of publication of any particular author. Like these are the journal level metrics: impact factor, H5 index, immediacy index, psycho general ranking, and site score. So H5 index is basically to H index, but it is calculated for the journal and it is developed by the Google. So when you simply go to the Google Scholar, and here you can find out the H5 index of any particular journal. The next is immediacy index. Now this immediacy index is the average number of items an article is cited in the last year it is published. So the journal immediacy index indicates how quickly articles in a journals are cited. The aggregate immediacy index indicates how quickly articles in a subject category are cited. So there are author level metrics like index. H index has, like for example, in this slide, I have mentioned the H index of one of our professor, Punjab University. And here you can see this author having 105 H index. That means out of the total number of paper indexed by Scopus, there are 105 articles of this professor have been cited at least 105 times. So this is how this Scopus basically calculate the H index of the articles which is indexed by the Scopus. Another index is I10 index, and it is created by Google Scholar and used in Google's My Citation feature. So I10 index means the number of publications with at least 10 citations, and this is very simple measure which can use by the Google Scholar to know, the impact of scientific articles published by the author. So there are the new index is available, G index, because there are certain limitations with the H index. So here you can see how this G index is calculated for any particular author. And to just simplify the G index, how it is basically being calculated. So a G index of 20 means that academician has published at least 20 articles that combined have received at least 400 citations. So when you search on the Google, you will find many websites which will tell you how this G index is being calculated. And even in this PPT, I have, capture the calculation in this slide, and you can see you have to arrange all the articles published by an author in a, according to total number of citations, highest citations received by the paper. So here you can see how this G index is basically calculated. Now there is another important matrix is available which tells research scholar about the impact of their research on the social media. So alt metrics are the alternative metrics derived from open web resources. They measure the number of times a research output is tweeted, downloaded, viewed, discussed, and pointing to the public social visibility of your output. So this tool is very much helpful in terms of knowing the impact of your research on a Twitter or Facebook or blog, and this will give you the statistics about how your research is being, trending in social media and what is the impact of your research on a social media. So you can create your account also, and there are many tools are available in an open source platform which gives you the impact of your research using this altmetric concept. Now this is all about my presentation, so I tried to cover from the research scholar's point of view, right? When you're writing your research paper, and if you are following these steps, and if you are following these criterias for writing your research paper and submitting your research paper, that will always give you advantage of acceptance of your paper in a reputed journals. Hope this lecture will be informative for the research scholar, and if you have any query, if you wanted to ask me anything, you can message me, and then through message I can also try to reply all your queries and doubt. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you.